I'm a professor in the law school. Remember
Sorry.
to record this. Well done, Sabine. I'd already forgotten. So I'm a professor in the law school here at Newcastle, and I'm also the program leader for this course. I've got a couple of colleagues on the call with me as well. So one is Sabine Walsh. Sabine Walsh. She'll be presenting with me today. The program that we offer is a joint program delivered by Newcastle and Mediator Academy. And Sabine is the co-founder and head of learning of Mediator Academy, and you'll hear more from her later. And also Dr. Miriam Gikello is also on the call. Miriam's a lecturer who's a specialist in arbitration, mediation, and ADR, and she teaches a couple of modules on the program. So the program has a focus on mediation, as you'd expect, this increasingly important form of dispute resolution, and it's becoming more and more developed in a range of fields right across the globe. And so that's the center, the focus of the program, but in the wider context of dispute resolution, particularly commercial dispute resolution, looking not only at national developments in England, across the UK, but also internationally across Europe, across Asia, for example, Australia, the US, and also looking at international instruments, international developments, which cross borders in this context as well. So I'll say a few things about what's going to come up in the session today. There are really four things. So the first will be, well, why might you think about studying this program? Secondly, what's the program all about in a bit more detail? Thirdly, how you will learn as a student on this program. And then finally, how to apply. The primary focus of the session today is on part-time study over 2 years, but much of what we say will also be relevant for full-time study, and we can answer questions about that if that's your preference at the end. It should only take around, I think, 30 minutes, and there'll be time for questions at the end. And if you do have questions, please just put them in the chat box whenever they come into your mind, and we'll take them at the end and deal with the queries at that point. So a little bit more about why to study mediation in the context of international commercial disputes. I said a bit about this already, but we're seeing, quite significant developments in mediation across a range of jurisdictions in many different dispute areas. So not just commercial disputes, but employment disputes, investor-state disputes, community disputes, family matters, construction matters, a whole range of different areas in many jurisdictions. So there's huge developments ongoing here in England, in particular in relation to court-based mediation. But we're also seeing significant growth, new legislation promoting mediation in the Middle Eastern region, across Southeast Asia, across India, parts of Africa, Australia, New Zealand, the US, many jurisdictions. So it's, I think, something that's becoming incredibly important in those different settings. A bit about why to study at Newcastle. So Newcastle is a leading research-led Russell Group university in the UK, and we've got significant reputation and expertise in the fields of dispute resolution, mediation, alternative dispute resolution, those kind of areas. So we're very well placed to deliver a program such as this. So we're going to move on to the next slide, which will talk about the what, so in more detail, what you'll study in the program. And Sabine is going to start off going through those issues with you.
Thank you. Okay, so we have, first of all, good morning, afternoon, evening, depending on where you are in the world. It's lunchtime here in Ireland. So a little bit about kind of I suppose the structure of the program, first of all, and how you're going to learn before we move into a little bit more detail in terms of the content and then the different learning methodologies. The really the unique feature of this program is that it's online, which may not be unique, but it is an immersive online program. So it is a different type and style of online program from what you might have experienced in the past. And we'll talk a little bit in a minute about how exactly the online learning differs from what you might be used to. The advantage of this, of course, is that you can study from anywhere in the world. Last year, we had students from all different corners of the globe, from South Africa to Malaysia to the northwest of Ireland, to Europe and the UK. So, and notwithstanding the fact that students are all in different corners of the world, because of the way the program is structured, you all study together as a group. And I think last year's group really found a great sense of collegiality and support. The other advantage of it being fully online is, of course, that you are able to study either full-time or alongside your other work or studies or life or whatever other activities you're engaged in. And this proved particularly popular last year. We had a number of working professionals, some of whom were already working within the mediation space and already had some experience, who were able to study alongside their legal practices, dispute resolution practices, work in various different sectors. And because of the way the program is structured, and a lot of it allows for planning your own learning around your own life, this has proved very suitable and very attractive for professionals and those who wish to study part-time. The other kind of, I suppose, unique feature of the program is that successful students will graduate with a dual qualification. That is the Law Masters, LLM, which is the UK level 7, Continental Europe level 9, and whatever other levels in other different countries. And also an IMI qualified mediator qualification. So one of the modules has a very practical skills focus, and students can then undertake an assessment to qualify as an International Mediation Institute qualified mediator. And that qualification is recognized internationally, and also is within the UK entitles those people wanting to practice in the UK to register with the Civil Mediation Council, which is one of the main UK mediators bodies. Another sort of distinguishing feature of this program is that you get to learn from the leading academics in the field, like Brian and Miriam, and also from a range of international faculty from all over the world: Singapore, Australia, Hong Kong, the United States, different parts of Europe. And these expert faculty are all practitioners, so you're really learning from their real life experience in the commercial dispute resolution arena, which will also help to integrate the theoretical aspects of the program and the more practical. So that's a kind of a whistle-stop tour of the features of the program. Brian, I might hand back to you just in relation to fees and funding.
Yeah, thanks, Sabine. So in terms of the fees, there are different options, of course. If you're studying full-time over 1 year, then the cost of the course is £14,000. And if you're paying over the 2 years, then it's £7,000 in each year. There are different instalment options for payment as well. And we also have certain scholarships available, which are effectively used as fee waivers, which are, if you're successful, are put against your fee account essentially to reduce the fee payable. I think Sabine's going to say a bit more about those right now.
Yeah, so we're very, very happy to be able to offer 8 partial scholarships for this program. So 8 separate candidates will be able to receive some financial assistance with the program. And not just that, but a number of these scholarships come with additional benefits. So we have two scholarships which we have created in memory of a close colleague and mentor of ours, David Richbell, who was very active, not just in the commercial mediation space, but was really passionate about training young dispute resolvers and young mediators. And the David Richbell scholarships come with the additional bonus, I suppose, of the opportunity to observe and work a little bit with some of the top mediators in the UK from well-known UK mediation chambers, independent mediators. And those scholarships are open to all because those observerships can also be carried out online in the context of an online mediation, of which there are still plenty going on, notwithstanding the fact that many things have gone back to a face-to-face model. And then we also are pleased to be able to announce just today a new scholarship funded and sponsored by Maxwell Mediators, the leading mediation chambers based in Singapore. They also have offices in London. And this scholarship also comes with an observership opportunity with one of the members of Maxwell Mediators chambers, who are a number of, in fact, all of their faculty, all of their members, I should say, feature as guest faculty on this program. And that scholarship is particularly designated from students who are resident in the Greater Singapore region area. And the observership can take place out there or indeed online as well. So those scholarships, as I say, save for the Maxwell Mediator Scholarship, which is available to Singapore residents, the rest are available to anyone applying for this program. And we will talk a little bit about how to apply shortly. So what we're on to next then is a little bit more on what you'll actually be learning and studying on this program. The structure of the program is that if you are studying full-time, you will take 3 modules, also known as classes, in semester 1, which is between September and the end of December. Is that right, Brian?
That's right, yep.
And then 3 modules in semester 2, which is from January until May. And if you are studying part-time, Brian, just you can add how that works.
Yeah, so if you're studying part-time, which perhaps some of you are thinking about doing on the call today, then you would take 3 modules in each year. And the way that normally would work is that in semester 1, so end of September, you take 2 modules, dispute resolution and conflict studies, and mediation practice and skills in the first semester. In semester 2, you would just take 1 module, which would normally be mediation theory that you take at that stage. You would then do the remaining modules in those semesters in year 2. Obviously, if you're full-time, you're doing everything in the 1 year.
Yeah. Okay, so, and then the first module is really, I suppose, lays the theoretical foundation for the entire program. And that goes into the area of dispute resolution, so different dispute resolution processes and options and how they integrate with each other and how they appear in various different contexts. And then conflict studies as well, where you really get a deep theoretical and practical understanding of the dynamics of conflict, the causes of conflict, and why alternative processes such as, for example, mediation and different versions of alternative processes are so useful and so successful and effective in many different types of conflict.
Okay, and so thanks, Sabine. So the second module, the mediation practice and skills, is, I think, really a central one, again, a very important module. It is more skills-based, as you would expect, than some of the other modules. It does form the basis, the primary basis of your IMI accreditation. And it's effectively a class where you will learn or hone your existing mediation skills. But there's quite a lot of, I think, reflective practice built into this program as well, where you need to think about and reflect upon your practice, and try to marry together the theory you're learning and your practical experience. So I think that, we've had students who have been already quite experienced mediators doing this class, as well as those who do not have any existing mediation experience. And it's very interesting to see them learn together. And I think that all students, no matter what their level of experience, will really gain from undertaking that particular class. So it is a core class in the program. The other class that you will take in semester 1 is research theory and methods. This is the only module which sits really outside of this program, in the sense that every single master's student at Newcastle Law School will take this class, whether or not they're online students or in person, although the class is delivered fully online for all students, which is convenient for us. And effectively, this class is more about helping students to understand how to study, how to research law, how to write about the law, and to think about different research methodologies, ways in which to present research findings in law, to study cases, study Acts of Parliament, for example. And also, very importantly, because all of you will go on to do a dissertation at the end of your study, this class forms the kernel of that, in the sense that you build up a potential mediation dissertation project in this class, where you put together a proposal which is assessed and guided by the class leaders in this class, and that can then form the basis of the dissertation that you go on to do. So all of our master students, I think last year about 110 students in all in Newcastle, took that class. But it's something that will be very, I think, instructive and useful for all your legal research and legal writing. And then going into semester 2, if you're full-time, you're doing these 3 classes. If you're part-time, you'll be doing the first one. So the first one, again, is mediation theory here. And this is a class which really takes a deep dive into core theoretical issues in mediation. So matters such as party self-determination in mediation, mediator neutrality, impartiality. It also takes a deep dive into negotiation theory more broadly, which of course is incredibly important in legal and other business and practice areas. And you spend quite a lot of time looking at negotiation theory and practice and examples of well-known mediations and negotiations. So again, and that's a class which, again, you can really bring to bear on your own practice, thinking about the impact of theory or how theory applies within your negotiation and mediation practice. And the next class that you see there is mediation law. We are a law school. I'm a lawyer, although perhaps a recovering lawyer would be a better expression to use for me, someone who's quite keen on negotiation and mediation these days. But we do include quite a significant amount of relevant legal study here. So looking at the law as it applies to mediation, not just in England, the UK, but also in the wider context across Europe, many other jurisdictions, and also looking at the law as it applies internationally to, for example, international cross-border mediation or investor-state mediations. Huge developments, legally speaking, in terms of new treaties, bilateral agreements between different jurisdictions in these areas. So that's an area where we'll look at, what should the law be here? And what kind of legal provisions might benefit and help promote mediation, protect the process, give users confidence, that kind of thing. And I think that Sabine's going to talk about the last class we have here as well next.
Yeah. This is one of my personal favorite, I have to say, and you have the lovely Miriam guiding you on this class, which is really about looking to the future. And it's an area that is changing and shifting so rapidly because of the developments in technology and in both in the technology used for mediation and dispute resolution and the types of technology that are now giving rise to a whole new type of dispute. So that's going to be the focus of that class, looking at how technology is involved in disputes, how it can be used to resolve disputes, some best practice models that are already in existence, how new developments like AI are impacting on the dispute resolution and mediation world. and also doing a little bit of blue sky thinking and looking to the future and seeing how exactly, well, there's no exact science about it, but how mediation and dispute resolution are likely to develop into this new era of technology. So it's a really fun module, I think, anyway. Okay, so just quickly on modes and methods of study. Now, I've spoken a little bit about the fact that the type of online learning in this program is different. And it's different in the sense that I think most online learning that maybe people are used to consists predominantly of pre-recorded lectures. And that is not a kind of a methodology we use really. The way we've designed the online learning is really that it keeps you engaged, and you have to remain engaged with it throughout. It uses a number of different modalities, a number of different learning objects, such as videos in video interviews with our expert practitioners. There are 2 feature-length mediation simulations, professional mediation simulations that show you, or 3 in fact, how a mediation plays out or can play out. There are obviously resources and reading, because it is an academic program, but a lot of exercises as well that will help you check your understanding and make sure that you stay on top of your learning at all times. And those, when you enroll in the program, you get a timetable and a schedule. Those units of learning are released every week. And you will be able to, we kind of give you a time estimate on how long they take. So you'll be able to chunk your learning as suits you, which is particularly important for people who are maybe thinking of doing the program part-time. You can decide, for example, that you're going to do 20 minutes of engagement with the lessons every evening, followed by, a half an hour of reading or a couple of hours of reading at the weekend. Really, it is designed so that it will fit around your life. You can even access the lessons on a mobile device if you want to, though obviously not while driving or riding a bike or anything else like that. You then also have live online tutorials and live online skills practice. So the tutorials are with either Brian or Miriam or also myself, and where we will be able to really dig more deeply into the kind of issues that we're exploring, have a few debates on whether mandatory mediation is a good or a bad thing, and do some sort of creative work both in groups and in a group and in smaller groups. And then there will also be skills practice, which take the form of role plays and various interactive exercises to prepare you for the skills practice, and particularly the skills assessment. And Brian, over to you then for the tutor support.
Thanks, Sabine, for that. That's great. Thank you. Yep. So even if you're an online or virtual student, as you were, and you're not necessarily going to be in Newcastle, the university will treat you insofar as possible as like any other student on campus. You'll have access to all the same facilities, the library or facilities, most of which is online now. Anyway, you can join any of the student societies, any activities ongoing. Many of them are now happening online as well. Everyone's assigned a personal tutors, an individual academic. In reality, it will probably be Miriam or I for this program, not necessarily, but probably. And we're there to answer any questions you have, to support you in your learning, to deal with any problems you've got, any issues affecting your study. We can talk you through that and give you support, or signpost you to the relevant service that can help you in a way that we are unable to do so. And there's also a lot of activities ongoing in the school itself. So talks by visiting professors, different activities. We've got a mediation society, so a group of students at all levels. Some are postgrads, some are undergraduates, who I've been involved in for a few years now in terms of training as mediators, holding events in mediation, bringing in guest speakers, also entering competitions, student competitions. You may have seen this in mediation and negotiation, also mooting and arbitration, for example. And many of those activities are actually taking place in a hybrid form or wholly online. And certainly this year, some of our master's students got involved in the society and were able to interact and mediate with other students who were attending students and also enter competitions on behalf of Newcastle. And it's just an interesting way to meet other professionals, to learn from peers in different jurisdictions, and to get more involved in the field. So we encourage that quite significantly. I want to say a bit about assessment here as well. I think, yeah, so I'll just say a little bit about assessment, then we'll swiftly move on. The course is assessed in a variety of different ways. As you might expect, being a master's program in the law school, some of the assessment would be written assessment in the way of traditional essays, but we also assess by getting students to write, for example, blogs, reflective diaries or reflective logs, where students will be asked to reflect upon their practical experience in training, for example, or in role-playing. There's also some embedded multiple choice questions through the online materials themselves. There's also, of course, the skills assessment, which primarily takes place in the mediation skills class, where you'll have to do 2 assessed online mediation role plays with your peers playing the roles of lawyers and clients. We also have discussion boards. So weekly, when the lessons for each week go up, we'll ask a question, a discussion question of all students. And all students are asked to participate weekly in the boards, to debate with each other, to bring forth their ideas around controversial or topical issues in mediation and negotiation. There's also a group presentation that you will give for the, actually it's an individual presentation that you give for the online dispute resolution class, which also involves a capstone project, which is a small, very practically focused project where you look at a particular area of commerce, for example, and determine how online dispute resolution developments could assist in developing that area. And you'll hear more about that in the class materials itself. And then finally, as I mentioned before, every student will do a dissertation. And this is a 12,000 piece of, well, up to 12,000 words, independently produced piece of scholarly work, where you pick an area of controversy or interest in any aspect of the course whatsoever, under supervision from either Miriam or myself in reality. It will be. So we've got some students now in the first year who are now doing their dissertations, and that represents the culmination, if you like, of the master's programme. Okay, thanks, Sabine.
Stuff. And now for the important part.
Yeah, so just to a few issues around the practicalities. We're now getting sort of later on in the cycle. I'll come back to the dates at the bottom. Don't be too alarmed by those dates. I'll be able to give some context to them here and talk you through them. But essentially, because of course it's a master's program in the university, you have to apply formally for the program. And I've given you a link here as to how to apply for that program there. And the application is dealt with not by the school and not by me personally, but by central admissions, which is the case in most universities, although I am able to help if there are difficulties with processing that application. And you would require your transcripts, as you'd expect, referees' statements. You may require a passport, for example. So normally in terms of the academic requirements for a master's program at Newcastle, we're normally looking for a 2-1 undergraduate degree, or equivalent from your own jurisdiction. But there are exceptions to that. I think particularly given the nature of this program, which has a greater, I guess, participation from experienced professionals, we will look at relevant professional experience in lieu of having formal requirements. And we'll look at that on a case-by-case basis, and we've done it this year, and we'll continue to do that. For those students for whom English is not a first language, then normally the university is looking for an IELTS qualification or an equivalent. at 6.5 as an overall score. And I can give you more information on the specifics of that. Again, there's some flexibility here for students who have an English language undergraduate program qualification already. I think it goes back to the last 5 years. And again, there may be some flexibility around that for particular candidates who have been working in English as a significant language in their professional life for many years. And again, those are inquiries that I can perhaps help with. So that's applying for the course. There's also the scholarship application. Now, formally to apply for the course, formally speaking, the closing date is the end of the month. In reality, there's a good bit of give in that. So I think certainly we can accept applications to the middle of September if that's necessary, but it's better to get it in more quickly because it does take a bit of time to navigate the applications process. So it's worth giving a bit of time in that respect. Now, in terms of the scholarships, now that date should actually say the 14th
Apologies.
of August and not the 12th. Now, again, I realize that's very, that's very short, in very short order from where we are now. But in terms of the scholarship application, you simply send in an email and we'll send you the email address for that, putting in a 500-word statement outlining your motivation for undertaking the course and think about how it might enhance your career. And then the panel will sit and determine how to award scholarships by looking at that and also reviewing your application. So you need to also apply formally for the program so we can review the application along with the statement that you make for the scholarship application. We'll make sure that you get the scholarship address. I'll put it in the chat once I've stopped talking, so everyone knows how to do that. And so the deadline is the 14th of August. I guess, again, there will almost certainly be flexibility with that date again, and I'm happy to discuss that with individuals if you have queries around that. But to submit that's quite quick, actually. That won't take long, I guess. Applying for the program itself formally takes a bit longer because of the formal requirements of that. So I think that's possibly all that we had scheduled to say today. Thank you so much for coming in, and we're very happy to answer questions that you may have. I think there's probably one in the chat already, Sabine, isn't there?
Yeah, there is indeed. Yeah. So we've got a couple of raised hands. So if possible, if you could just put your question into the chat box, that would be the easiest way for us to deal with all of them. And the first question is from Tina Jones, which is, are completed graduate courses transferable? So she has a master's degree in conflict analysis and dispute resolution. I think, Brian, that's probably one for you.
Yeah, I mean, that's quite that's an interesting question. I think it's the first time I've been asked that specific question by somebody that has a master's in the area already. That is a question that I'll need to take back a more informed answer to you. I know that in some cases the university will give some kind of credit or dispensation for a program on the basis of prior learning. So what I'll do is I'll contact you at the end, Tina. If you can send me your email address, I can go into that in more detail with you regarding that question. But that's interesting. You've already done a master's in the area and you're looking to do something similar. Again, it'd be interesting to know where you did that course as well, Tina. Maybe just pop that in the chat for me, for my interest, certainly. Second question, for full-time study, are the hours self-timed or specific times during the day? So generally speaking, no, they're not self-timed. So what will happen is, for full or part-time in the classes concerned, on a weekly basis, we will release 2 lessons, which you'll work through. I think each lesson might take a couple of hours probably to work through. Does that seem sensible, Sabine?
Per Miriam, isn't it, per lesson, and we tend to release it's 2 lessons from each module, so it's about 2 hours per module per week for full time, and that's but they take that amount of time, but you can undertake them at any time that suits you. So those are not fixed hours. The fixed hours for full time, Brian, are, remind me.
Yeah, so there are some fixes. So in addition to that, so that means on a weekly basis, you can decide at what point you're going to go through the materials and when to stop and when to start, to make it as flexible as possible. We do schedule some live events, so live seminars with your peers and either Miriam or I or some other colleague. So for example, in one class, there'll be an initial introductory live session when we all come together. And we tend to just schedule that at the best possible time for everyone. And we record it for those who cannot make a time. If we had a larger number of students, we might run that session twice as well, depending on the numbers. And then we also have a couple of seminars throughout the year where you're given questions and themes to look at in advance. And you come in as a class and discuss those and debate, and you may be asked to present on certain topics together. And also in the mediation practice class, we will run on a fairly ad hoc basis, normally additional skills practice sessions that we organize at convenient times for students who are able to come and attend.
Yeah.
But on a weekly basis, everything is on your own time.
Yeah.
And we add in those sessions when we come together at fixed times, but at times that will suit you the best. And we're very flexible about that. So running it with a lot of questions coming in
as well. Just if somebody gets stuck or can't, you'll have access to all of them afterwards anyway.
Yeah.
And then for part-time, I mean, this is the question from Nisha. Then for part-time, I suppose you can kind of have that really. And again, the hours are flexible. The tutorials are sort of half that and timed then around, particularly with part-time groups, to suit students depending on kind of what time zone you're in and that sort of thing. So there's the whole idea is that the program is flexible enough in order to attend alongside whatever other commitments you have in your life. Your follow-on question, Nisha, is around how it differs from mediation short courses that are on offer. And I mean, I'll hand over to you on this, Brian, in a sec. But from my perspective, I would say that it's an entirely different program, and both in terms of its breadth of subject matter areas that it covers, from law to conflict analysis to technology to politics, even the politics of mediation, and in terms of its depth, the level of study that you undertake and the depth to which you go. Brian, you probably want to say a bit more on that.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think there are a couple of things. So there's certainly much more focus upon theory, and I think blending theory and practice, becoming reflective practitioners, thinking about the application of theoretical constructs in mediation. And you also, I think, learn a much greater context as well, in the sense that you're learning more about the legal frameworks around mediation in different settings as well, and learning more about online. And it's an academic master's program. It's a high level research led master's program, which within it has this practical qualification within it as well. But it's much more than that. So I think that's probably the best way to answer that question for you, Nisha, and I hope that's fine. The next one about IELTS, and it's so you did your IELTS a long time ago and completed the master degree in English. Again, there is an exception to having to do IELTS is if a student does have a previous qualification in English. I think the timing on that, when that was conducted, that degree program was conducted, the university will go back at least 3 years, but possibly longer. And again, if you can let me know when it was that you undertook that program, that might be relevant. But there may be, again, certain interventions I can make with central admissions, as I've done before, for students who are asked to do IELTS, but generally, don't actually need it in practice. We know that they don't need it; they will cope absolutely fine. So I can engage with you more about that.
Yeah, 2017. So that's not that long ago. So that might be. I might let you, Brian, manage that. Brian, just while I think of it, could students email you directly with information and that as well?
I'll also put my email address in the chat for you to have as well. what I've also put in the chat, everyone, is the link to information about scholarships
And
as
yeah,
well.
the Mediator scholarship isn't up there yet because that's only just come through, but we'll on with details for that. Also, just on Nisha's question around mediation being used in lots of different contexts. I mean, yes, that's one of the big advantages of this program, is that because of its breadth and its depth, it covers really mediation in pretty much all contexts, you know, and the skills that are used are very transferable. The laws that are applicable tend to apply to employment, community disputes as well. It even touches on the area of family mediation, which is a kind of a different species, but to a lesser level than sort of employment, community, commercial, and general, I suppose, what we call civil mediation, you know, in civil disputes. So yeah, as I say, because of the breadth of the program, it enables you to use the skills and the knowledge in a variety of different contexts.
Sorry, I just put my my email address in again that I hadn't put it in properly for everyone in the chat there, so hopefully you've got that. And did I put? Yeah, I did. So I'm just looking for the next question down. So thanks, Tina, for giving me the information about your program, and I'll come back to you about that. We can have a discussion offline, perhaps, about those things. Does the course provide?
Brian, just on the course, the university providing support for career development.
Yeah, so there's very well developed career development within the school, both at law school level with its own career service, and also wider university careers that certainly the students are able to engage in that sense. And I think what we're trying to do is give you as much exposure as possible to the mediation community through doing this program, by meeting faculty, by getting involved in competitions with professionals and peers from other jurisdictions, for example, and you know, giving you those connections in the field. So absolutely. I mean, I'd say that, you know, I think the mediation, just to say a little bit about this, you know, mediation career pathways, they're very different in different contexts, I think, actually. If you think about high-level commercial mediation, most of those mediators operating at a high level are either working or have worked in a different field for some time and move into mediation that way. In other areas, it's much more common for people to come out of postgraduate study, for example, and go into mediation practice in different ways. So it's quite a complex, it's a rapidly moving field as well, though, I think, because there's more mediation, it's becoming more legitimized, more accepted, and it's becoming more, I think, seen as an independent profession in its own right, whereas previously it may have been seen as something that maybe lawyers do on the side, for example, which is a terrible way to describe what mediation actually is. But certainly there was presumption that that was the case. So absolutely, there's a lot of support for developing career.
And just to add to that, it's a really interesting time actually for this as well. I mean, in the quite long time that I've been involved in mediation, this is the first time I regularly see jobs advertised for mediators. For example, just this morning, I'm based in Ireland. There was a notice that the Financial Services and Pensions Ombudsman was looking to recruit for their mediators panel. So which is extraordinary, you know, and similarly with other state services, and I know in a number of different jurisdictions, India, the Middle East region, there really are increasing opportunities, not just for self-employment as a mediator, but actually for employment within state services and other bodies. And of course, the UK is about to launch into, which you'll learn all about in the programme, a whole new Court Annexed, Court Connected mediation programme and possible expansion thereof, which is going to require significant resources in terms of mediators. So it's a very exciting time, I think, to be studying this subject. And just on that, I mean, one of the reasons we were so keen to build the networks and the scholarships with the mediation chambers is for precisely that reason, so that students would have the opportunity to connect directly with the top mediators who work in these chambers, and for the scholarship students to observe with them as well. So that's really a unique opportunity.
So I think we've possibly answered all the questions which...
And yeah, the slides will be available, as will the recording. The recording will go out to everybody who registered anyway. And I will also put my email in the chat box so that Brian isn't too inundated. So you can contact either of us if you have any questions or need any help at all. But other than that, thank you very much, everyone, for taking time out of your lunch break or breakfast or dinner, depending on where in the world you are, to join us. It'd be great if we can welcome some of you on the program. We're really looking forward to getting stuck in again in September. And yeah, thank you very much from Mediator Academy headquarters in Ireland anyway.
Yeah, just to echo that, thank you so much for coming on and making this a really good session and asking some very pertinent and good questions as well. So yeah, great to meet you, and I hope to see some of you again soon. Thanks so much.
Just end the recording there.